Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Metal Magdalene with Jet here on Metal Messiah Radio. Tonight we have with us a special guest. We have musician, artist, entrepreneur, Kim Dylla of Kylla Custom Rock Wear, and so much more. Welcome to the show, Kim.
Thanks for having me.
So, Kim, a lot of us know you, of course, as Volvatron from the metal band GWAR, but looking back, you are so much more than that. So tell us a little bit about growing up and when you started to become interested in art and fashion and music and how you eventually took this love and made it your career.
So I guess I've always been a creative person. My parents always fostered our creativity. I took piano lessons all growing up and vocal lessons. I did musicals, and I think painting was really my passion. I did oil painting, like classical photorealism stuff all through my teen years and school years, and I drew constantly. I think it was, pre-internet dates, so I would just go home and draw things. And music was always my accompaniment to that, and I just sort of was obsessed with finding cool records, and I never really thought I'd be in a band, but then I got in college, and my really good friend Christina from the band Intenebris, and she's now a opera singer and vocal instructor. Wow. She's like, I know you like that death metal stuff. There's this death metal band that practices in our spot, and they're looking for her girl who can scream, and I would always scream along in the car to Cannibal Corpse and Morbid Angel. She's like, you want to go give it a go? I was like, okay. So I think I was probably 95 pounds at the time, and that was This Means You, my first band. I went in there and just opened my mouth, and this John Tardy from Obituary scream came out, and they kind of stopped playing. So I got that gig, and then we were a band for 10 years, and that's how I learned everything about the music industry and touring and making records. And I used to make my own stage clothes for that band. So I started creating things from leather that I found in thrift stores and deconstructed because I didn't have a lot of money in college. And everyone really liked my jackets, including my friends in way bigger bands. Joey Jordison from Slipknot was the first person to wear one of my jackets. Wow. And he just literally stole it from me, we're the same size. And he's like, can I borrow this? And then didn't give it back, but I didn't really mind. It started as a hobby, but then Joey kept wearing that around. And then people like Rob Flynn from Machine Head and Cradle of Filth called me for clothes, and it just kind of became a monster. So I quit my job working at University of Virginia. I used to work in the realm of digital archaeology and cultural heritage, which is super cool. But, if you ever have a chance to be your own boss, I think you should give it a go. So that was 6 years ago, I think now, and I haven't looked back, and it's been pretty nonstop, full on since then.
So what's the process like designing clothing for stage for these artists?
So it's different than being a fashion designer, I think. I mean, obviously, having a design concept is important, and I usually come up with a look when I listen to the music, or just knowing the history of a band's image or what, contextually works for certain genres and what works for certain performers. You wouldn't want to put the drummer in skin-tight jeans if he usually wears, track shorts,
Right.
And so I take into account all those personal things, and then I make some designs. And I also, as a performer, am thinking is this going to be comfortable on stage? Is it going to be durable? How are they going to clean this? Things like that. So it's not just all fashion. There's a lot of function when you're making stage wear, and we do a lot of wrestling clothes now too. We dress cool. A lot of the WWE guys, so it's the same thing, You've got to be in their ring, working in these jeans. So they've got to stretch, and they got to be triple stitched in the crotch and things like that.
So what have been some of your biggest struggles in running a business like this? And what are some of the day-to-day stresses one has to deal with in this business?
I would say number one stress is hashtag dealing with musicians, hashtag dealing with wrestlers, because anyone with, any experience in the music industry knows, like, they're not the most organized people. They don't really, like, plan ahead a lot. So I get a lot of things from my sort of, like, AAA clients that are like, can you make this thing and, like, overnight it to Germany? And I have to be able to do that or I don't get to have this job. So
oh, my God.
I'm really good at wrangling chaos and expediting international shipping and things like that. So international shipping is probably also my number one stress because they always mess it up, like customs. But I've gotten so much experience with that now that I anticipate the problems before they're going to happen.
Do you have, like, other people helping you as well?
I have an assistant who sews with me. I've had a sewing assistant for like 4 years. I'm on my second sewing assistant now, and she's great. She comes in 3 days a week and just helps with the physical, like, creation of stuff. I do all the design work, and I wear too many hats. I think that's the other challenge is, like, I'm not a businesswoman, I don't know how to, like, run numbers and things like that, but you have to when you're the all-in-one person. And I think the biggest challenge is running a schedule when you have people that constantly want things at last minute. So I wonder how, like, doctors do that sometimes, because they book appointments 6 months in advance. And of course you have to accommodate the people that are like, oh, I got the flu. So you have to leave some flexibility in there. And then, like, what happens when there's a flu outbreak, and you get like 10 walk-ins. That's when you leave poor people with appointments sitting in the waiting room for 2 hours probably. So
you're like the seamstress doctor almost.
The rock doctor. No, I think that's a totally different guy and a totally different job description, and I think he provides things other than jackets.
So, I mean, you also, you go out on the road with some of these bands, and I mean, how the hell do you balance all that shit? I mean, you have all these orders to fill. You got to get out there on the road. I mean, a lot of late nights. Do you sleep?
Not really. Sundays, I sleep Sundays. I have a live-in boyfriend now who makes it easier for me to sleep because I have a reason to, like, put it down and come home or, like, not work till 4 a.m. But no, I definitely run on, like, 5 hours sleep, and I prefer to sleep in the morning, not at night, because I hate mornings more than anything in the world, except for maybe, like, ranch dressing and JFK Airport. Yeah, it's, I don't know. I don't sleep. I don't, like, a lot of people try to talk to me about, like, TV shows or something, and I can't remember the last time I had time to, like, sit down and, like, passively consume entertainment. Like, I mean, I have to go to a lot of shows, but it's kind of work for me now to do that. So, I mean, when I travel is when I get to put it down because I'm, like, physically driving or, like, on a plane. I can't actually be sewing.
So, like, who are some of the bands that you've done? I know you've done a bajillion of them, but who are some of the bands that you've worked with?
So Machine Head was, like, the first band that we did a full wardrobe for. We've been dressing them for, like, 5 years now, and I guess this is their farewell tour for this lineup coming up. And then Dress Creator was another one of, like, the first bands to get a full wardrobe from us. And then we did Arch Enemy and King Diamond, which is one of my favorite bands of all time. So it was, like, an honor to be able to dress them. And then we've done some pieces for, like, Nita Strauss from Alice Cooper, and just tons of, like, and we do have WWE, tons. I mean, probably 50 metal bands now.
I saw your interview with Nita, by the way.
I do this, like, Ali G character, like the Sacha Baron Cohen thing.
I've watched them all, Kim.
Okay. Because, like, she thinks it's really funny, so she wanted me to do an Ali G interview with her. Like, the crews that I work for, 70,000 Tons of Metal, I wear a lot of hats for them, too. But they asked me to start doing band interviews, and I hate just the interviews that just always ask the same questions that are like, so you got a new album coming out. How's your day going? Like, tell us about what you're working on.
Right.
So I started doing, like, the Ali G ones where I just deliberately get the band name wrong or, like,
but it's
I wish I wouldn't have to do the Ali G accent, like Steins, to ask those questions. But it's just, part of the gimmicks.
Well, it's fun. It's fun, you know. Except for that video was kind of funny because Nita kind of looked afraid, and I was like, "What?"
Oh,
she's like,
she totally played it serious. It was so perfect.
It was fantastic. So tell us a little bit about the 70,000 tons of metal cruise, too, Kim. How did you get involved with that, and what's going on this year with that?
So it's basically a heavy metal festival on a boat in the Caribbean, which is the best idea ever. So we get like 60 bands. It used to be 40, and a couple thousand tickets. And every year it goes from like Miami or Fort Lauderdale straight to an island in the Caribbean and back. And the bands play like all day and all night. There's no backstage. Everyone's just like hanging out. And I used to go on the cruise just as a fan, because a lot of my friends' bands were playing, and it's just really fun. But then they started doing the pool girls, and they started having a designer on board. So I gave Andy, the skipper, my business card, and I was like, I already dressed like half the bands that play your cruise. Like, I would like to be considered if you need anyone else for this job. And I got the job, and then in addition to dressing the pool girls, they asked me if I like wanted to be one, and started doing band interviews, and now I like host the belly flop competition and just general like fixer of situations and things like that. Like, I don't know. So
whatever. It's a fun time for you at least to get away a little bit and have a good time. So
yeah, I don't think anyone can possibly have a bad time on the cruise unless you like get dumped or something.
Oh, that's terrible. So Kim, tell us a little bit about some of your experiences in some of the bands. Of course, tell us a little bit how you got involved with GWAR, what that whole experience was like.
So Dave Brocky was a very good friend of mine, and he loved my band This Means You, and he also loved my band Kung Fu Dykes, which I played in for several years down in Virginia Beach. We're sort of on like hiatus right now, but that's also like a costume band, sort of like GWAR. We were like monsters, and we're basically like lesbian monsters from outer space, and it's all like UV light. We played Barbecue. So I don't know, when he passed away, I was like devastated. And Brent Postulus, it's like a friend of mine from when our bands used to play together as well. And they were thinking about getting a girl because they're like, oh, no one can compare to Rocky, so apples and oranges. I thought it was a brilliant idea, so they called me to come in and audition, and pretty much got the gig. And they basically told me to make it up. So we made it up. And then my first gig was like 30,000 people at Riot Fest with my ass hanging out and 4 rehearsals. So, but then I think we broke the internet several times. And I don't know, it was very fun to get my sort of dream of, I've never dreamed of being famous. I know enough famous people that I know that like nothing good comes of that. But I always wanted to be in like a legit touring band where I didn't have to do like all of the work, like book the shows, unload the gear, and drive the van. But like, you know, you get a tour bus and like you don't have to, you show up and there's like lots of people there, like, and you didn't have to do all of the jobs to do this. So that it was nice doing a real deal thing that people know the name of and now like take me seriously and treat me a little bit more seriously. And most of all, it was really cool paying tribute to my dead friend in a really amazing way. But you know, being in a band is sort of like being in a relationship, and there's a lot of interpersonal stuff that goes on, especially when you're dealing with like 14 people that have been working together for like 30 years. And it's just it's like joining a marriage after there's been a lot of drama. So, you know, it didn't maybe end the best way, but I have nothing bad to say about them, and I'm grateful for the opportunity they gave me. And yeah.
All right, so tell us a little bit about your band Fulton Avenue, how that all came about.
So that Fulton Ave is kind of my like local band, but it's like it's just for fun. But it's been great to like get back out there playing just some shows, like get in the van kind of deal, and remember my roots and remember what I loved about that with some friends. And Jordan from Bellamorte used to tour with them with This Means You. He called me up and sent me some demos. It's like, I have this band about like serial killers and it's like death metal and we need a vocalist. Do you want to do this? So I started recording with them, and then we just kind of got back out there playing some shows, working on a full-length album. But it's really fun. They're really fun guys. We have a blast, and it's not where I have to sing about serious emotional things. It's all like serial killer songs about murdering hookers. So it's kind of fun to get creative with GWAR in that way. But, you know, hopefully we'll have the album finished by the end of the year. And then I've got 2 other studio projects that I'm working on. And then my black metal band, A Winter Lost, hopefully we'll get back to writing a new album with that soon. My partner in black metal has been reproducing, so he's been busy with children.
Well, that'll maybe make him creative and angry. I don't know. Well, you know, I listened to some of the music actually from Fulton Avenue, and I loved it. I mean, it's fun. It's like you said, it's fun, death metal. Everybody looks so relaxed and having a good time, and I think that's what people want to see and hear nowadays. You know what I mean? We're so used to all these blast beats and all this stuff being constantly thrown. It's kind of nice, you know, to hear a band like that.
Well, there's 2 things that always turn me off, especially when people are like playing these kind of venues and gigs, or it's like local DIY gigs. One is like having an ego. It sucks. Nobody should have an ego. If you're Iron Maiden, they don't even have an ego, you know, or like Alice in Chains, they don't have an ego. So why should like Bob's Bar Band show up like they're God's gift to rock and roll? Like, cut that shit out, you know? And then also, if you look like bored or nervous or whatever, nobody is going to have a good time watching you. Like, no one's getting rich off of this. Just go up there and have fun. If it's not fun, go work in investment banking, you know? Because no one's making money.
And you said you had an EP out. So what's the name of the EP?
I think we just called it like Fulton Ave, like EP.
I mean, is it available?
Yeah, we physically have it for sale at our shows. Like, people could message the page if they really want one. We basically just sell it at the shows, but I suppose I should put it on, like, I haven't really put it on the streaming services because it's not a finished product, you know, it's not a real album. When we finish the full album, we're going to pay big money to get it, like, mastered, so I don't really want to put the EP songs out there yet on, like, Spotify or Pandora or whatever the kids listen to fake music on, not real records, the way it was supposed to be.
So what else? So what else do you have going on? So you got your black metal band, you got Fulton Ave, you have your sewing stuff, you got your 70,000 tons of metal crew stuff. Is there anything else?
I mean, I have hobbies. I paint. I make giant physics art oil paintings of high energy physics equipment, and then I have a 1976 Dodge Aspen that I like to work on and cruise around.
I saw that. And that's cool.
I collect old Star Wars figures and old metal records, and I like to hang out with my boyfriend and in nature in Virginia. And I go to Europe all the time. And next summer, hopefully, we'll be playing some gigs at some European festivals with a UK black metal band that I work with, Stalsarg. Mm-hmm. I did a song with them for their last album, and we're going to be doing more songs. So they want me to like be a part of the live show now, which would be cool.
Wow, that'll be nice over in Europe.
Yeah,
wow.
And I did a European tour with Velvet Acid Christ, which is a sort of legendary industrial band. Mm-hmm. And then my industrial band's called Mindless Faith, that I do like the female vocals when they want a female vocalist. So occasionally I do like goth industrial stuff too, but that scene is more alive in Germany and stuff than it is in America.
So it looks like you're going to be pretty busy, and that would be fun for you too if you did that European tour and you didn't have to drive the van. Yeah,
that would be great, because I'm not great at, like, I don't know, driving on the wrong side of the road in a giant manual vehicle while wrangling signs in various languages.
No. You just sit there and be good.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, thanks for coming on the show, telling us a little bit about your business, your career. I mean, what advice would you have for like young women who want to get out there but are afraid because so much of the business world is dominated by men nowadays? I mean, what kind of advice would you give to people like that?
Definitely don't take any shit from anyone, but you also have to be careful of like the way things are in those industries, because you do get like judged really harshly and treated like a groupie. And if you do anything to like further that assumption, or you can't avoid it. Like I could show up in a suit that says boss and like have a giant, road case of stuff working. They'd still be like, who are you here to fuck?
Right. Yep.
Sometimes. But just sort of like a lot of times I started when I go to festivals, instead of, wearing like my cute dress that I wanted to wear, I wear like a crew shirt with a radio or something, and you get taken a lot more seriously. So you kind of have to like work against people's assumptions. And like ever since I started working in the industry rather than just playing in a band, it's not like I don't drink beer, because who wants to go to a metal festival and not drink beer? I mean, come on. That's like going to New York and not getting a slice of pizza. But, I have to be real careful that I handle myself around my alcohol and that I know my own limits, and just, respect the way that things are. And at the same time, don't take any shit from anyone, and feel free to call out anyone that gives you bullshit. Because, like, I do that, if like security is obviously being super sexist, or like, it's just constantly like that. I mean, and as a female singer, I try not to just market that as a gimmick, like my gender, like hashtag female fronted metal. I mean, you get called that no matter what, but I'm like, it's not really a genre, is it? It doesn't tell you much about how, I mean, maybe if I sang unicorn metal, like, like that's, I sound more like a lot of male vocalists than I do female vocalists in Fulton Avenue, at least. And so obviously in GWAR, giant blood spewing tits is definitely using sex as a gimmick, but the guys do that too with giant blood spewing dicks, so it's really not gender discriminating.
It kind of balances it out a little bit up there.
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, do whatever the fuck you want, unabashedly. Just, be aware of how you're being judged, and never be afraid to like play off people's assumptions and challenge them, I guess.
Sounds good. And there you guys go. Kim Dylla, owner, operator of Kylla Custom Rock Wear, singer, artist, entrepreneur. You can check her out on her website. And Kim, thank you so much for coming on the show to tell us about your career, and all the best to you and all this shit you got going on.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.